This is Eat, Sleep, Invest, the marketing podcast for real estate investors to get more deals.
Hey, welcome back, everyone, to another episode of Eat, Sleep, and Invest. I'm your host, Brian Driscoll, and I'm here with Daniel Paloscio. What's going on, Dan?
What's going on, Brian? How you doing?
Pretty good. How about you?
Good, man. Good.
Yeah, so today we're going to talk about transactional funding, hard money, things like that. Dan, why don't you give everyone a little bit of background on what you do and how you got involved in real estate?
Okay. So I got into real estate about 2013. I got started flipping houses. From there, I kind of realized that if I wanted to get good deals, I needed to market for them myself. So I did a lot of marketing. And from doing that, I kind of figured out that flipping houses is a tough business with a lot of moving pieces. So from there, I got into more wholesaling as I started, seeing more deals, getting more deal flow. And then from there, I kind of just saved up and, leveraged the relationships that I had over time and started lending out some hard money myself. And I've been a private lender for a few years now. I'm a partner in a vacation rental management company. I buy and hold short-term rentals, and I do transactional funding throughout the country.
Nice. So transactional funding, is that the same thing as hard money, or is that different? What is that?
So transactional funding is a form of hard money lending. It's a short-term loan, typically paid back on the same day, that a wholesaler would use to buy and sell a home on the same day, so that or to facilitate a double closing. So a situation would be like there's a large fee that the wholesaler didn't want the seller or the buyer to see. Situations like that.
Yeah, and that comes out, that's pretty often too, because you can lose some deals right at the closing table.
Yeah.
The seller sees, wait a minute, you just made a $50,000 wholesale for me, and they just call it off. So what you're saying is the investor would sit down, close on the property with the seller same day, then they close on it to who they're wholesaling it to, and there's two separate transactions versus everybody at the same table.
Correct. So in most title companies are going to require that the wholesaler, which is the B party, bring their own money to the transaction to close the deal. So if you're buying the property for $100,000, you're selling it for $150,000. Most title companies are going to require that you bring $100,000 to close. You can find some title companies that will still allow a dry closing, but those are far and few in between because of the underwriting guidelines that the title insurers sort of tightened up on since '08. But so in those cases, when you do have to come up with the funding to purchase the property, hard money doesn't necessarily work because a lot of times the points and fees on that could be pretty expensive. They have minimum earned interest or prepayment penalties. So, in a situation where you need to buy and sell on the same day, transactional funding would be your best and most of the time cheapest option.
Cool. So talking about fees, because you're right, hard money, you got points up front, all the interest, all that. What kind of fees would somebody be looking at just roughly on a transactional funding deal?
So it's pretty basic across the board. We charge 1% under $1 million. We've got a minimum fee of $750 flat. So anything under $75,000 is just a flat $750. There's a $100 processing fee, and that's it.
That's cool. So, how's the process work? So say I locked up a deal, right? I lock up a deal, get it under contract. We're coming to close. At what point does somebody need to reach out? How fast does it take? Underwriting? Run me through that process.
Yeah, it's a great question. So the process is super simple, and our process is we've thought about our process a lot to make them as easy as possible. And so all you're really going to need to do to get started is have a contract with your end buyer and a contract with your seller. So as long as you have an acquisition and a disposition contract, and as long as you set your closings to be up on the same day, to have a double closing, and as long as those are at the same title company, you're guaranteed funding. There's no underwriting process. There's no credit check or income requirements. We don't even actually get an ID from our clients. And so pretty much everything is done at the title company. So if you can line up both closings to happen on the same day, and you can line those both up with the same title company, you don't even have to talk to us. You know that you're guaranteed for funding.
Yeah, I guess that's pretty low risk on your side too, right? Like money goes to the title company and they spit it back to you.
Exactly. And because the risk is low for us, we try to pass, we're able to make it cheap, and we try to pass those savings on, to our clients.
Yeah, what made you get involved with this type of funding?
I needed it a while back. I was in a situation where I had a large fee, and I knew that the seller was probably going to be a little bit upset if they saw it. And I tried to dry close the transaction, and the title company wouldn't let me. And at the time, I was a little bit newer, so I didn't have a ton of relationships, and I didn't have a bunch of money saved up to be able to kind of fund it, a 5-minute deal. And so I did a bunch of research online. I couldn't really find anybody. Luckily, I was able to work with a hard money lender, and I think I paid, 2.5 or 3 points, on the deal to make it happen. But after that happened, it just kind of stuck with me. And as time went by, and I got myself into a different position, I figured, hey, I might be able to help some other investors that are in the same situation that I'm in.
Yeah, that's pretty solid. Yeah, because I don't know anybody that does this type of lending. It's normally just the hard money guys.
Yeah, it's mostly the hard money guys. There are some new, it seems like new companies that have kind of popped up recently. But I get calls every once in a while where they tell me like, hey, I was working with this guy, and closing was today, and I can't get a hold of them. So there seems to be a lot of people who are looking to kind of broker deals, and but we've done hundreds, maybe over 1,000 of these transactions here recently. So we do them all the time. We've got a pretty good reputation, and we have one job, and that's to show up with the money, and we make sure we do that right every time.
Yeah, and you're right too, because that's very important. Like, doesn't matter if you have the money, you can give it to someone if you don't show up on that day.
Yeah, a lot, and we specialize. We fund any size deal, but we do specialize in the larger transactions. We do quite a bit over $1 million. And a lot of guys, will say that, hey, we can fund these transactions, and they're, behind the scenes trying to put the money together from their mom, their friends, and everybody else. And it's not easy, to kind of put that kind of capital together if it's not something that you're doing all the time. It certainly is possible. And so, like I said, we get guys that come to us in those situations, believe it or not, pretty regularly.
Yeah. And what else is interesting too is because you're an investor yourself too, so you understand the game. It's not like you're just a bank. Like
right.
The pain points in the whole process through as well.
Yeah. No, I'm as I'm working with you on motivated leads, and so I'm doing a ton of marketing, and we're still acquiring, for my short-term rental portfolio. So I'm in the business still currently. I'm still an investor. I'm still buying, and so I understand the business from an investor's point of view, and I understand what's important to an investor, specifically a wholesaler.
Yeah. Now, on your short-term rentals, where are you purchasing?
So right now we're in Tampa Bay, and so I'm purchasing, and there's about 7 counties that surround, that are considered the Tampa Bay metro. I really look at stuff anywhere in Florida. I get more conservative on my numbers outside of Tampa Bay, but the majority of the properties are in are going to be like, Clearwater Beach area, Indian Rocks Beach, and then Tampa proper.
That's cool. Now, do you manage them yourself, or do you have a property manager?
Yeah, so I'm a partner in a property management company that's Vacation Rentals of Florida, and my partner and I manage a portfolio of about 70, 80 properties right now.
That's pretty solid. How many properties do you have?
I own 10.
Yeah, that's a pretty hot spot down there too.
Yeah, it's gone crazy, especially, since COVID. We were fortunate to be in the right place at the right time, when everywhere else in the country seemed to be closed. DeSantis kept us open, and everybody traveled here, and we saw, our property values have almost doubled since that time, just like a lot of people around the country, and rates have kind of, nightly rates doubled. And so it's, I really like the short-term rental market, because I find that, to get good cash flow, you typically need to be in like C-class neighborhoods. And those properties don't appreciate as well. And, the tenant basis can be a little bit difficult. But what I find with good performing short-term rentals is you want to be in those B and A neighborhoods. And so you're benefiting from, the cash flow, which is sometimes 4 times more than what you would get as a long-term rental. But then, a side benefit of that is you get to participate in heavier appreciation on a more expensive property. A lot of my properties are worth, 700, 800,000. And so it's easier to kind of park a little bit more capital into one property versus maybe owning 5 to 6, smaller homes in lesser neighborhoods.
Right. Yeah, you're right too. Because I only invest in A/B neighborhoods up here in Pittsburgh, and the cash flow, you're right, it's not there because I do long term, not short term.
Right.
And you're right, you get all the appreciation, but there's no cash flow. It's like
right.
a couple $100 a month, which is nothing.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a fair trade-off though, because on the other hand, your clients or your tenants, I should say, are probably a little bit easier on you, and so I guess you have less of a headache factor. They don't beat the properties up as much, and just a better quality of tenant.
Yeah, how rough is that with that's a job, right? Because you're turning people, at least weekly.
Yeah, it's. So we started it. Believe it or not, my partner and I started with rental arbitrage, and we started with this really sick mansion on the beach that my partner was just like cold blasting people on Zillow, offering to rent their properties, and he fell into this really sick beachfront property on the Gulf on Reddington Beach and over by me, and we worked out a deal with the owner for like $5,500 a month rent. It was in foreclosure, and it had some deferred maintenance, and my partner owned a construction company, so we just kind of put a few $1,000s into it, made it livable. We decorated it as you would imagine that 2 bachelors would decorate a home, with brown everywhere. It was so bad. This guy that owned this property built the home for him and his wife. His kids were grown, so they built a 4,500 square foot house with 2 bedrooms. So we enclosed like one dining room with Chinese wall dividers, and we turned the laundry room into another bedroom, and we ended up in season there doing like $35,000 a month, and it was just insane, and we couldn't believe it. And so from there, I had a bunch of properties that were listed on the MLS as flips, and I said, well, hold on, before I sell these, why don't we just kind of see what would happen if we market them as short-term rentals. So, but yeah, to answer your question, we were, answering calls at 2 a.m. because, guests got locked out of the house, and we did that for a while. But now, we've got a full staff. We've got a general manager, we've got a maintenance manager, we've got a housekeeping manager. Altogether, we've got about 10 staff, and and then in addition to that, we've got a couple reservationists, VAs over from out of the Philippines. And so, it's a 24-hour, 7-day-a-week job for sure.
Yeah, and that's pretty solid. Now, how many properties do you think an investor needs before they would outsource it to a property manager for the short term?
That's a good question, and it really depends on, I think, the individual investor's goals, right? Because for a while, my partner Andrew and I were managing our own properties, and I realized, that if I would have focused more on acquiring more properties, I'd have been much better off. So it's kind of a situation where, do you want to trip over dollars to pick up pennies? Because you could pay a property manager 20% to management, and you sort of lose that income, or you could just go find another house. And if you find that one more house, that one more house is likely going to support, the property manager on 2. So I think it's almost, if I wasn't in the business of property management, there's no question I wouldn't even consider managing my own homes. Not one house, not 2. With long-term rentals, maybe you hear from your tenant a few times a year, but on short-term rentals, you're hearing from your guest every single check-in, every single check-out, when they can't find the light switch, when they don't know how to work the dishwasher. And you can have lists and guides and, guidebooks for everything. But some people just like to ask a human a question, and it's just nonstop.
Right. Yeah. Even on long terms, like I property managed my first couple, and that sucked.
Yeah.
It's like on Saturday, you're getting a call, the sewer's backing up or something. You have to literally stop your day,
right?
Get a plumber when you call, versus you deal with a property manager. It's great. They just call me up. we're good. It just turns into money transaction there versus screwing up your schedule.
Yeah. Yeah. And we've got our business set up now where my partner and I are involved in the business development, and we're involved in sort of the processes and procedures, but the day-to-day is covered by someone at all times, because getting those calls, like you said, on Saturday night, you're at dinner with your wife. It's frustrating when you create a situation where you're the person that has to make things happen, because things have to happen all the time.
Right. Yeah. 100%. Yes. I think property manager is worth its weight in gold.
Mm-hmm.
Now what's on average? You say 20% is what you'd expect to cut?
Yeah, 20%. Some companies do it for less. The big guys, what they do is, they may give you a little bit of a lower percentage, but then they'll kind of jack their cleaning fees up. But for the most part, 20% is a good range.
Yeah, that's fair too, because there's so much cash flow, and like you'll get 5-6 times the cash flow as a long-term rental.
Yeah, without a doubt. I've got properties that, I would probably rent for about $4,000 a month, which what is that? 1224 is $48,000 a year. And those properties are doing like 110 gross as a short-term rental. You obviously have more expenses in those situations. You're paying for, you're paying for electric, you're paying for water, you're paying for lawn maintenance, pool maintenance, all the things that you likely wouldn't if you were in a long-term rental. And then there's the labor factor, and then there's also the purchasing of all the furniture, and then the maintenance of all the furniture. So, my partner and I figured out a way that, for our clients, that we handle most of the small stuff, most of like the repairs, any damage and stuff that's done by guests. But either way, an owner's still going to have to shell out money to buy the furniture and sort of maintain a house a little bit more. But at the end of the day, if you're in the right market, it's no comparison. You're going to probably make about 4 times more than you would otherwise.
Yeah. What kind of places do you have? They beachfront, bigger, smaller? Like, what are you seeing best?
So I've got one on the beach. It's not beachfront, and it's so what we found in our market that works really well is having a lot of space, because there's a lot of multi-generational families that like to travel here, and that's going to be everything near the beach. Tampa Metro is a little bit different, and so if you're going to be near the beach, I should say, you want to get like a 4-bedroom, 3-bath plus. Those are going to be the houses that, like, you can really do like $140,000-$150,000 a year gross. And then what I'm trying to buy more or less now is like luxury properties, bigger, more expensive properties that sleep more people, that have like, different, I guess what people would call like a wow factor, like a really cool grass wall with like a neon sign that says, I don't know, this must be the place. And then girls take pictures in front of it and post it on their story and whatever, stuff like that, have like a cool game room or things to do, because you definitely want to have a pool, because people want to spend the time at the house, especially the multi-generational families. They want to spend time at the home together, cooking meals together, hanging out at the pool together. They don't want to go out to dinner with 13 people, or they don't want to have to go to even the beach all day, get all sandy. So, but in Tampa proper, it tends to be a younger crowd. So the smaller units probably do a little better.
Yeah, I guess that's a good point too, because I know me and my family, we always go to Outer Banks.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we have to get like a 6-7 bedroom house because everyone's there.
Yeah.
But yeah, in Tampa or something, you're renting to different people, so you got to look who's traveling to which places and go that way, I guess.
Yep.
Are you guys taking on clients for property management?
Yeah. My partner and I just started doing business development on that stuff over the last 4 to 6 months, and now we're taking on clients.
Okay, cool. How do you pre-qualify who you take on and who you don't?
Well, so I guess that's a good question that I haven't really, we've never considered not taking a client other than the property type. We try to avoid the smaller properties that are, maybe $15,000 or $20,000 a year gross. We like to see properties that are grossing $50,000 or more, but we have a few clients that have like apartment buildings where there's 7 or 10 unit, and then there's a few smaller properties. But for the most part, there's not a lot that we won't manage, as long as it's in an area that that is going to do well for the owner, right? Because we get some people that call us and their homes are maybe in those C-class neighborhoods, and we'll tell them, hey, you may be better off as a long-term rental. It may, you may end up making less money with us. And so we don't ever want an owner in a position where, they're going to do worse with us. So that's probably the only situation where we wouldn't take on a client.
That's cool. Yeah, 'cause, I guess most of the people coming now, do you guys do the repairs for them and everything too? Like, can someone come to you and say, hey, I got a property, I want to do a short-term rental, but I don't want to fix it. Do you guys do that stuff, or do they have to come with a turnkey property?
Yeah. So as far as it depends what the property needs. But like I mentioned, my partner is a partner in a construction company, and so separate from what we do, if property needed some sort of updates, they would work that out, directly with my partner. But it's really not connected to us. It's just he happens to have a business that does that. But
Yeah, that's pretty convenient though. Yeah.
yeah, it's most people come to us with properties already together or at various stages of the rehab process. And as far as like maintenance during, our management, we would handle all of that. So we would handle all light maintenance that doesn't require a license, which, saves owners money because we're not calling, handymen out or, contractors out to, fix a squeaky door or something.
Right. So basically, you can help people with the money if they need a transactional funding, and also anyone in the Tampa area that wants to do short-term rentals, the property management.
Yeah, I'm also a private lender inside of Florida, hard money lender inside of Florida, and so a few of my clients, I've helped them purchase the properties that we manage, and then they've later on refinanced out into a long-term product.
Nice. Now with the transactional funding, that's nationwide, right?
Yeah, transactional funding is nationwide with the exception of Alaska and New York right now.
Okay, yeah, everyone says New York's a pain.
It is a pain, and who else is a big pain is California, and it's because in New York they won't allow both transactions to happen at the same title company. Every agent needs, or every the buyer and the seller needs their own attorney to represent them in the deal, and they want to do their own escrow, and so it adds a level of risk that unfortunately doesn't allow us to operate there. California, we're one of the only transactional funding companies that do operate in California. And California has a similar, quirk where they don't allow, most title companies aren't allowed to file the deeds for two transactions on the same day. So the first transaction has to close and fund, they file that deed, and then a day or 2 days or 3 days later, the title companies want to file the next deed. And so that obviously, changes the risk level when you've got to own this property for 3 days, and then, new questions come up like, hey, do I need insurance? And what happens if, the buyer disappears? And so most people don't operate there because of that. We actually work with a title company that closes our deals for us and is able to get those closed on the same day, or if not the same day, the next day. And so we're able to fund there.
Yeah, that's pretty good. So if anyone wants to reach out to you for the transactional funding, where do they go? Or what's the best way to reach you?
Yeah, so our website is doubleclose.com, and my direct email is info@doubleclose.com.
Okay, cool. And hey, what's your website for motivated sellers?
It's sephomebuyers.com.
Okay, cool. And then if anyone wants to reach out for the property management, how would they reach out for that?
So our website there is bookvrof.com. That's an abbreviation for Vacation Rentals of Florida. And my email there would be daniel@bookvrof.com.
All right, cool. And everyone listening, that will be in the show notes too, so you can check those out. Hey, well, thanks for coming on, Daniel. We appreciate it.
All right, Brian, thanks for having me.
Hey, thanks, man. Thanks for everyone for listening. Yeah, get out there, crush it, and close some deals.